This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. Well, we know what's coming.
You can tell from there.
JR is the evil heel, and it's going to go downhill in a hurry. What did JR think about this? You know, the idea that he has to, because we know if nothing else, I know JR loved being talent relations and he loved being quote unquote office, but he really loved being the voice of wrestling. He loved doing commentary. Is he hesitant to want to do an on-screen character thing and really just prefers to be behind the desk? What do you remember of that?
I think JR doesn't like to be disliked.
Yeah.
I think that Jim is one of those people that I don't think Jim is a convincing heel because he doesn't like it. You know, some of us really enjoy pissing people off and being booed and hated and playing a heel character. Jim did not enjoy playing a heel character. He may have been one in real life, but he didn't enjoy playing it on screen.
At this point, are you having any serious conversations with Dr. Death? I mean, just sort of take me through. Are you the one who lays out the Kabuki Mask creative and then meets with him to talk about the Jim Ross is going to be your manager? What's his demeanor? I mean, is he vocally unhappy, or is he just, hey man, I'm here to do what y'all want and get paid and make the town?
Doc was there to do whatever we wanted to do. And I believe I did talk to him about the Kabuki stuff and the whole Japanese scenario as far as, you know, being too dangerous and all that other good shit. You know, I did lay all of that out for him. I didn't do the Jim Ross one, no, because that didn't come from me. And I just thought it would be short-lived, and not something anybody wanted to embrace, including but especially the audience.
Let's talk about the next piece of creative here for JR. On the following week on Monday Night Raw, JR calls out Michael Cole and pulls out the red gi and mask that Dr. Death had been wearing and said, this is what the quote unquote WWF creative team had planned for one of the greatest athletes in the world. He kicks Cole low and tries to take over commentary before Vince sends Terry Taylor down and Steve Williams convinces Ross to leave. JR's delivery here is great, but this is just not good in hindsight, right?
However, the stuff when JR had his own little announce table next to the Raw, that was some of the most entertaining shit ever on Raw. And that part was damn entertaining.
It winds up with Ross and Williams on Raw having a new commentary table built. And as you mentioned, JR still doing his own commentary, but Dr. Death winds up beating not one, but both of the Hardy Boys on a Sunday Night Heat taping. And it's kind of crazy to think about. You know, by no mercy, the Hardy Boys are big stars, and that probably wouldn't happen again. But then comes the debut of Ed Ferrara as a parody of Jim Ross when Tiger Ali Singh offered him $500 to do a JR impression, and that gets him dumped on his head by Dr. Death. And of course, Tiger gets beat up pretty well by Dr. Death as well. What'd you think of the Ed Ferrara parody back then?
I hated it. And then Ed fancied himself as a worker, and yeah, I can take it. And then didn't take the suplex well, but yeah, I'm not a fan.
I get that. It's hard to really like. Yeah. Did JR ever express any concerns about the way he was being positioned here?
I don't think JR liked it at all. You know, and I think JR kind of felt from the Dr. Death point of view that we were missing the boat on a big nasty heel that could have been. Unfortunately, that big nasty heel had been knocked out by a guy in the middle of the card that no one had a lot of confidence in. And that, you know, that was just reality at the time. You know, Bart was, and I wish, you know, you further that by, okay, fuck, now Bart could be a star. You put him in the ring with a real boxer, and now you fuck that up.
Yeah.
there's a lot. Yeah, there were a lot of lessons that you learned throughout this whole thing, and they're hard lessons. That regardless of whether you got the Midas touch or not, sometimes it doesn't all turn to gold.
Well, and I know JR couldn't have been tickled with the creative of Ed sort of mocking him, but JR winds up calling the main event of WrestleMania that year, probably because of Steve Austin. What do you remember about that? I mean, he's not doing regular commentary. He's got this heel character position, but when it comes to the main event of WrestleMania, he's back behind the desk calling it.
Well, I think it was something that Stone Cold wanted and felt that this was the best way. Kind of, let's just do this, ignore the rest of the shit and move on.
The next night on Raw, Jim Ross isn't announcing, and Steve Williams is taking on Bob Holly for the hardcore title. And JR is back and trying to do English commentary, but he's at the Spanish announce table. And then Al Snow hits Dr. Death with a frying pan after Williams hits Holly with the Oklahoma Stampede. And somehow Bob Holly retains. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.